Welcome to this special call meeting of the Danville City Commission for Monday, May the 24th, 5:30 p.m. I see that we're all here, and now our city attorney has joined us as well. And I will ask that we be led in a moment of prayer by Commissioner Kevin Cardle.
Thank you, Mayor. Pray with me if you'd like. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great day and this time to gather together to work on the issues of our town. We would ask that you guide us in our thought process and our behavior, and that we conduct ourselves in a way that's pleasing to you. We thank all those medical personnel, frontline folks, military, everybody that's protecting us. And we would ask that you keep us all safe this summer as the kids are now out of school. And we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commission, you've had the agenda since Friday. The only item I would like to offer as an amendment is item number let me find it in here. Thank you. Item number 14 regarding the readoption of the covenants of courtesy. I'd like to move that to a broader discussion in a separate meeting to follow up with the first meeting we had with Susanna Thomas. We all gave Susanna input. We said at that meeting we would ask her to come back and give us a summation of her thoughts, and I think that would be a much more appropriate time to have this discussion. Y'all okay with that? Very well. We'll move that into another meeting. Earl, I'll ask you to get that meeting teed up as soon as possible. We are in the section called Hear the Public. If there's any items on the agenda for the public to address, this would be the opportunity to do so.
There are no comments.
Very well. We'll move right on into the general. Item 1 is a proclamation for the National Garden Week. And they have been contacted, correct, Ashley? And they want us to go ahead and present this in absentia. And I shall read it. Whereas gardeners have a passion for nurturing the beauty and resources of the earth through the planting of seeds, the care of the plants, and the riches of their efforts, and whereas gardeners seek to add beauty, splendor, fragrance, and nutrition to our lives through the growing of herbs, vegetables, foliage, and flowers, and whereas gardeners work to preserve our country's traditional spirit of independence and initiative through innovation and hard work, and whereas gardeners advocate the importance of all creatures, large and small, that share our world and their roles in a balanced and productive ecology, and whereas gardening furnishes a challenging and productive activity for our citizens, for those just learning as well as those having years of experience, and whereas gardening promotes a healthy lifestyle that lasts a lifetime, helps reduce stress from other areas of our life, teaches that rewards can come from diligent efforts, and whereas gardening enables members of the garden club across the nation and the world to make a difference, to make a world of difference in the communities where they reside and work, and furthermore, let it be known that the Garden Club of Danville is celebrating its 85th year of service in the community of Boyle County in Danville, Kentucky. Now therefore, excuse me, let it be resolved that Mayor G. Michael Parris and the Board of the Commissioners of the City of Danville hereby proclaim the week of June 7th through the 13th as National Garden Week in the City of Danville. Do I hear a motion for the acceptance of the proclamation?
I'll move for acceptance of the proclamation.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cottle, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is a, wait just a moment. Yeah, item 2 is a Art Center program update with Miss Nikki Kincaid. Good afternoon. There you go.
Update up here?
Yes.
Take this off.
Sure.
All right. So as you can imagine, this past year, we've had to pivot quite a bit to still meet our mission and also be there for our community. So I'll talk a little bit about the various areas in which we did this and where we're going. So exhibits, we did pivot to an online experience for our exhibits as well as in-house. We had 5 exhibits this year, and our the one that was most impactful was the Art of Being Black, Conversation and Experience. And this was an interrelated, 3 interrelated exhibits about the experience of being Black here in our community and throughout Kentucky. It received quite a bit of attention. We had the Lane Report pick it up and write an article on it. We had State Representative Attica Scott attend, and Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman came. So something that was, it was a good experience for our community to come and express their feelings, to learn and to listen. Our next big exhibit is on Appalachia, so it will be a similar kind of thing where we have 3 interrelated exhibits and artists from the Appalachian region with the intent of listening and learning. We'll also do a Stephen Powell retrospective in the fall of 2022. So those are our bigger exhibits coming up in the next year to 2. Classes, again, we also pivoted to an online format and had quite a success there. It broadened our audience to people all through the state of Kentucky. And so we'll continue with that as we figure out our programming for this coming year, and a lot of in-house programming, but also a lot of online as well, so that we can speak to that audience. Brandon, a staff member at the Art Center, was really pivotal in helping create that. He was very scared in the beginning. He had never done it, and he was super successful, and I just want to do a shout out there. We also, our field trip program was online and again allowed us to reach people all through the state of Kentucky, and that was really important for us with this particular exhibit, The Art of Being Black. You can see the booklet there that every student received, and then we had an online version of a gallery tour with Yolanta Pace, who led that, and we also did we hired Graham Jackson to do a permanent video of that exhibit, and so this will be available to students in the future all through the state of Kentucky. So our camps this summer, we are lucky and happy that we're going to be in person. We're about 40 to 50% capacity, so basically they're all sold out, but we'll have, you can see there, I don't know, 15 or 16 different opportunities for kids in our community. Then programs and events. We canceled most of them last year, aside from Lunch with the Arts. But this year, we'll really focus on programs and events, giving our community a lot of opportunities, having a lot of fun. One of our new events is called Go Van Go. It's kind of like a dantastic race through downtown, doing different arts opportunities, and it should be fun. We have open mic nights and a fiber retreat and music events, family days, a gaming conference. So a lot of different programs and events, lots of outdoor things. And then outreach, we opened the Art Box, which is, if you're not familiar with it, we've been putting projects and various things for community members to pick up out in front of the Art Center for free. And we let people know on social media what's available in the Art Box throughout, this whole pandemic, and we'll continue to do that. We also have partnered with various people like the Gladys Project, and we did a literacy art box combination where kids got books and then also were encouraged to read books, and we had programs and, I'm sorry, not programs, but projects related to the books. Then we had a lot of different relationships with libraries in the region where we created content for them to pass out to their constituents, about 5 different communities around Danville that we partnered with during COVID for that. And then for all of our Lunch with the Arts programs were free this year. Basically, they were all online. And then the public art map, as you can see in your thing, we've put that together and just released that. And then coming up is the big Danville Art Festival for fall of 2022. So it's a year's worth of planning that. And that's just kind of a little snapshot of what we're doing.
That's a busy
Questions?
corner. That is one busy corner.
We appreciate the invitation to come, Kevin, and share some of that, so.
You know, just a quick comment. When I moved here 4.5 years ago, Nikki had just started as the permanent director, right? I think you were interim for a while, and she asked to meet with me, and it was to meet with me and find out what I was made of, but it was also to ask for money, which she's really good at. And we talked about art centers, we talked about some of my experience, and she asked me to be on the board as the treasurer, which I dread, but still on the board. And in the last 4.5 years, I mean, the place, as you all know, the place has transformed from something nice to an amazing asset for the community, both the look of it, the programming, which you just heard about, what we're planning. It's like, she provides endless energy. So I just wanted to compliment her publicly with the great work that she does, so thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's something for everybody there, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Even Commissioner Terry could probably do a coloring book or something.
I can stay within the lines.
Good for you. But seriously, there is something for anybody, if you have any interest at all. That's where to go.
Yeah. I appreciate how you listened to the public and got involved in things our community was passionate about, whether it was a cause. I wasn't able to attend in person. I attended the Art of Being Black online, Frank Walker X online. I mean, just really phenomenal. And then a lot of the kids in the neighborhood really liked the art boxes and doing things outside on the sidewalks. And anyway, thank you for being creative and making, the pandemic a little bit better and still serving the public that whole time, just being creative. So thank you.
I'm not going to say anything.
Well,
Just,
part of that wonderful exhibit,
well,
so.
and my comment is just a thanks, because you ask, you tell, and you get. And that's what it takes to be a successful director of a place on Main and 4th. So just thanks.
And as you know, we have a fantastic team over there, so thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you both for coming.
Yes.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Enjoy your evening.
Oh, you didn't invite them to stay. They could stay for the rest.
Item 3 is an appointment I'm recommending to you on the CVB, and that would be Lynn Ty.
Guy at St. College. Yeah. His name is on there. Tell you his name.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. I'll make a motion for the approval of Lynn Ty to CVB.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes of the previous budgetary meetings, as well as one regular special called meeting. Chair will entertain a motion at your convenience.
Move for approval of the minutes as presented for the 2 meetings noted.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion made by Commissioner Cardle, seconded by Commissioner Terry. This is for the budgetary meetings of May 6th, May 10th, and, I'm sorry, May 6th, regular meeting May 10th, budget meeting also May 10th. Any discussion, additions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is the resolution number 2021-05-24-01. This is an amendment for the mowing contract. Go ahead, Josh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We're down 2 staff members with Public Services at the moment, one due to a promotion and the other due to a dismissal, and we're on a hiring freeze while we get the new payroll system set up. So we've got a couple of months, probably 3 months, where we're going to be down 2 employees. So to keep up with everything, we have some areas that we're currently mowing with staff that's not on our contract that we'd like to add to the contract for the remainder of the year. It's areas we probably should be bidding with the contract anyway. We're going to look to add them next year. It's the Tuggle Road property where the water tower project is currently occurring, the Jenny Rogers property, and the walking trail along Kentucky 2168. The amount, we got a quote from our mowing contractor, it'd be $5,660 a month to add those 3 properties to their mowing contract, and that's weekly mowing for Tuggle Road and Jenny Rogers, and it's every 2-week mowing for the walking trail at that price. So we would ask that the contract be amended to add those properties.
Any, do I hear a motion to approve that?
I'd offer a motion to approve Resolution 2021-05-2401 as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. We are in discussion. Josh, I know you said this was,
Through February.
yeah, I don't know. Tugger Road is not all that big. Jenny Rogers is a larger piece of property. But this is the best price you could get?
Well, I mean, we've worked with this mowing contractor for years. I mean, we can't, since we're amending our current contract, we're really negotiating with one contractor. And they've always given us fair prices. And Tuggle Road's actually, Marshall, how
Isn't
big
that
is Tuggle
5
Road?
acres or so?
It's 5 acres. So
Is it really?
it's a
Yeah.
pretty good size. I was surprised by it as well. But it's pretty similar scope to Jenny Rogers.
Okay.
And you're doing all of both sides of 2168?
Both sides of the trail, yes.
that's-
So it's
that's
a
about
pretty
4 miles,
significant undertaking.
Pretty neat.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Continuing on, resolution number 2021-05-24-02. This is an agreement with the Municipal Road Aid Cooperative.
Yes, the city staff reached out to KYTC concerning I was just trying to do some research about how we receive our checks for the Municipal Road Aid Fund, and got into discussions with the Transportation Cabinet that they have a cooperative program that cities can enter into. And the benefit of it is that instead of receiving monthly payments, we receive 3 payments. As I described in the packet, you get 60% of your annual amount in early August, your estimated annual amount, because they're estimating what the revenue will be. You get 30% of it in February, and then they reconcile it at the end of the year with whatever's remaining of the last 10%. They'll see what you actually would have gotten throughout the year, and they reconcile it. They hold 3%, and they put it into an emergency fund that everybody contributes to, and now we will be eligible to request funding out of that emergency fund if we have a project. It's really good for like bridge repair projects that are unexpected and things like that would be the benefit to it. But I just think in general, it allows us to get our funding in hand earlier. It also makes it's a little more known. It's more regulated to us. So it's better for us from a budgeting standpoint to know what we're getting ahead of time. They've already, if you look through this resolution, they've already estimated our amount for fiscal year 2022 that we'll receive. So we'll know in late July, early August, we're going to receive 60% of that amount. So we can already be planning our municipal road aid projects for the year, not having that in mind that we'll be receiving that funding.
Do we hear a motion for the resolution?
I move to approve Resolution 2021-05-2402 as presented.
Commissioner Atkins, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Cardle. Discussion?
Can you just for the public's sake, let us know what this money is used for?
It is used for the maintenance and construction of streets. And that could also go towards certain situations to sidewalks and trees and lighting. But it's primarily for, the city in the past has primarily used it for pavement overlays and for pothole repairs.
Thank you.
We'll continue with the Josh Morgan Show on item 7 for resolution number 2021. Oh, we need a vote, don't we?
Yeah, we can
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now, resolution 2021-05-24-03, Streamland Stormwater Design Fee. Continue, sir.
Yes, the city reached out to Strand Associates, who was the consultant that was used by the city to do the study for the, I guess it was Subbasin A. Is that the Streamland Subbasin, I believe? They did that study about 2017, 2018. And the result of that study was that a project was needed in the first phase project they described that needed to be done was the kind of the northwestern section of Streamland, the furthest back. There's a ditch that runs through the neighborhood that needs to be reconstructed and possibly put into pipe. We're going to kind of run some different alternatives and see what the cost is. But I reached out to them to give us a design fee proposal to design that project for us. As you can see, it's $36,850. And that seems a little bit high, but a lot of that includes, they have to develop easements for whatever the project determines that we need to do. They need to create legal descriptions and plats for each easement that we can get signed by the property owners. There's going to be a lot of property owner interaction because we'll be working across private property. So we've discussed the fee with the consultant, and it appears to be fair, so we would recommend that their fee be approved, and we amend their current contract that they have with the city.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I move we approve resolution 2021-05-2403.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 8 will be resolution 2021-05-24-04. This is an application for trails grant.
Yes, the 2021 round of recreational trails grant, the applications are due May 31st. So city staff met with the Trails Alliance earlier this month and discussed potential projects that we could apply for. You can apply for projects up to minimum $25,000, maximum $250,000. It is a 80%, 20% project. The city would be responsible for 20% of the cost, but that can include in-kind labor and equipment. And we landed on that the city currently has 2 trails that meet at Stanford Avenue out near David Drive. And we've been working with the Transportation Cabinet to come up with an approval for a crossing there, a crosswalk of some kind with signage. And I think we're all struggling. They're struggling very much to come up with a solution that seems safe to them. So what we're going to apply for with this grant is alternative to that includes a pedestrian refuge island. I've included some documents, some spec sheets in your all's packet that shows and some pictures that shows what we're going to propose. We anticipate the project costing $120,000. The city, we would be responsible for $24,000, but I think we can account for about $10,000 of that with forced labor and equipment, including some design work from us and some, public services staff can move some dirt around.
Forced labor?
Forced labor. It's a-
All right, there's a difference.
That's what I thought he said, too.
That means
Forced
Mr.
labor.
go out.
That's a state term. I got.
It doesn't mean
Forced
the
account.
commission's gonna go
Forced
out and dig
account labor.
holes.
We'll say that. So we would ask that we get approval to apply for this grant. We'll probably won't find out if we get it until probably the end of the year, first of next year, with anticipating, getting approval then and, looking at construction in 2022 at some point.
I like the pictures. I mean, you see those a lot, those.
Yeah, it's really that situation. It's about the only way to make it a safe, comfortable crossing for pedestrians. I've run that trail a couple times since I've been back, and you kind of just hit the open spot and just run through as fast as you can because traffic moves through there quick. And that's going to be the big thing. Not only does a pedestrian only have to cross one lane at a time, they only have to think about one lane at a time, but also it'll just instinctively slow down
Slow
traffic.
people down.
I mean, it'll slow them from 55 maybe down to 40. And that little bit of speed can make a big difference.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-05-2404 as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins.
And
Is there a second?
thanks for including the drawings.
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Any discussion?
Great plan.
Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 9 is Resolution 2021-05-24-05. This is a bid award for ADA playground equipment.
Yes, the city recently purchased a new ADA playground from Little Tykes using a 50/50 match grant from them. That is due to be delivered on the 28th, so this week.
Wow.
The last I heard. So the city needed to bid out the installation price because it was over the spending limit of $20,000. We received one bid on May 11th from Bluegrass Recreation Sales and Installation in the amount of $36,850, which is about what we thought it would be, getting prices previously for the installation. So we would recommend approval of that, award of that bid to Bluegrass Recreation.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2021-05-2405. Is that right?
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. Discussion?
Are we moving some equipment?
Yes, it's going to be installed up by the softball complex at Millennium Park, and there's an
Okay.
existing playground there now. We're going to relocate to that playground, and that's included in this cost.
Where is it going? Where's that?
At this point, we're thinking at Michael Smith Park.
Okay.
Is where we've kind of identified right now. So I think that's where we're going to put it, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 10 is resolution number 2021-05-24-06. This is an agreement with a company to manage our vending machines here at City Hall.
Yes, the city was pursuing a vending machine company for our break room in the basement, and we reached out to Canteen, and they've provided the city with a contract that will need to be signed. It's no cost to the city. It just defines what the responsibilities of the city are as far as, equipment and insurance and those kind of items. And we would recommend that this contract be approved.
Do we hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2021-05-2406.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second? Mr. Cottle, thanks. Discussion?
I always have my same question. Is this a local company?
It's Canteen. It's a large,
Large.
company. It's not a local company, no.
Okay. I knew there was a local group at one time.
Yeah, COVID kind of, when I got back, there was a lot of issues with, we weren't getting supplies, and COVID had kind of thrown things off some, and it was just, everybody was kind of ready for a change, from what I could tell. It was just one of those things.
That's true. Okay. Just glad it was explored. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 11 is the Public Art Design Guidelines. We'll ask that we welcome Joni House to the conversation.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good.
Good.
I'm excited to be back in front of you to get this moving. It's been a 2-year process.
Wow.
COVID, of course, interrupted the majority of it. So in your packets, what I did is sent you the public art review questions, and it is just kind of overview of what we all discussed when we got together 18 months ago with the City Commission as well as the Danville Architectural Heritage Board. I'm happy to go through these with you all one to one. You tell me how you want to do this, and I will conform to your movements.
Suggestions?
I guess just go down.
Just go down the list,
Yeah.
okay. As you know, we had a pretty lively conversation about how we wanted to deal with public art within our community. Most of what we talked about, there was consensus on with no issue at all. We certainly, as a community, want to have public art within the historic district. It contributes to the vibrancy of the community, and so that was generally agreed on, that everybody did want to see that. There was some questions about whether we wanted to have public art on only non-contributing structures. The general consensus was to have public art throughout the district, whether the structure was contributing or non-contributing. We have since really gotten into the meat of what is contributing structures in both the commercial districts and the Lexington Broadway districts. That would certainly come into play, I think, as DAHB granted to put these on the building. It's not a defined, you can't have it on a non-contributing structure or a contributing structure, but we'd certainly look at that harder if it was a contributing structure on how it would be applied to the building. That really basically has not changed at all. How it should be applied to the structure has not changed at all within the current guidelines. The only thing there that we would recommend is that adhesive films like vinyl films would not be applied to structures because once they get on there, they're a little hard to get off and they may actually damage the building. Materials that are acceptable, there was no real change to the existing guidelines there. The big problem is what size do we want for the mural? That has been a point of issue since we began this. My recommendation, as you can see, is planning and zoning already has language that defines pictorial representations as a sign. Murals should therefore follow the sign sizes already established by planning and zoning, and variances can be granted by planning and zoning. Danville Architectural Heritage Board really looks at how it is applied to the building, if it does architectural damage to the building. So the sign size really does not, it really is not an issue for the Architectural Heritage Board. However, since Planning and Zoning already has a sign ordinance together, we thought it would be the best and easiest way to handle it is just call it a sign. And then those folks could apply for a variance, which they would go in front of the Planning and Zoning Board to put their case forward and get that variance. The other thing we talked about is how do we want to take care of our public art? When you get a COA, there is a maintenance agreement that goes along with that COA, and that is permitted for 5 years. The one issue that we kept running into as I researched this, there are some ongoing lawsuits within the United States currently about artists who do not want their murals removed, damaged, altered. There's been several of those. So it would be my recommendation that we have some agreement to dismiss the city from any liability with that building owner as well as the artist. In case something happens, the mural is not taken care of and codes has to go in and order it be painted, we don't want the city being involved in a lawsuit because we've taken someone's intellectual property. I think we would probably have to work with the city attorney for that language, but that is becoming very commonplace across the country because everybody wanted these murals and nobody really thought ahead 5 or 6 years to figure out what you would do with them if a building changed hands. The current building owner didn't want that on the building, and it's caused a lot of issues with the murals. So I think we would be safe in doing that. Those are kind of the consensus of what everyone talked about, and within that, I prepared for you guys a draft proposal of the guidelines for public artwork. There's not a great deal of change there that you will see. Again, the biggest issue was the sign size and how we wanted to deal with that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about that. I know that Commissioner Cottle had some questions he wanted to ask, and I'm happy to talk with you guys about that. But you have in front of you my recommendations for the changes. As we move forward with this, I will have to, if you agree with this, I will have to submit it to the Kentucky Heritage Council to make sure that it is in accordance with the MPS standards as well as our certified local government contracts. I don't believe that there would be any issue with these at all. They're certainly in line with national park standards, and unless they would do something to our CLG, I don't foresee that the Heritage Council would come back with any issues for what I'm recommending. So go ahead, Commissioner Cottle. I know you
Well, I was
have
going to see if
some
anybody
questions.
else had any questions first. And these are from some folks up at the Art Center that we just heard from.
Sure.
And they had some questions. The first one, and some of these you've touched on, but I'm just going to read them because it's easier for me to just read.
No,
what
that's
they-
quite all right. We'll go into them.
Okay. What happens after 5 years that a mural is permitted for? Do you have to ask for an extension of a COA? Might be good to include that in the ordinance, since it seems like they're only allowed for a maximum of 5 years.
What is actually permitted is the maintenance agreement. We would ask them after 5 years to sign a new maintenance agreement. You would not have to come back in front of the Architectural Heritage Board to receive another COA, because the COA is actually saying that you can put the mural on the building. What they're permitting is a 5-year maintenance agreement, which is pretty standard. And I would
Okay.
think that we would want to maintain that so folks can come back within another 5 years and sign that maintenance agreement.
Okay. Question 2, the issue with anti-graffiti coating is that you're trading a hypothetical issue for a surefire issue. Applying anti-graffiti coating could well prevent touch-ups to the mural, since the entire purpose is to keep people from applying paint to the surface. It's a solution in search of a problem. As graffiti hasn't been an issue here, it seems like there's a lot of concern about upkeep of the mural, so I would think it might be better to skip the anti-graffiti, skip the anti-graffiti coating in favor of being diligent about applying touch-ups.
We do not require anti-graffiti covering. The new standards do not require them. The old standards do not require them. All we really do is suggest it. I
Okay.
would suggest it. I would hate for someone to paint on that and then the mural be damaged. But we don't require it, and we're not, the new standards do not require that.
All right, and this one's even longer.
It is.
Encouraging the installation of murals on removable substrates decreases the longevity of the piece in many cases. If the goal is high-quality murals that last a long time, direct application is better. If the overall thought is that murals should all be considered temporary, then maybe that doesn't matter. But if the guidelines are pushing us towards murals that are both significantly and more expensive and more temporary, isn't that going to produce the vibrant art field downtown that we want? And it's an odd disconnect to go to bat for ghost signs, but then say the new murals aren't meant to last more than 5 years. Again, I think you touched on that, but anything to add?
We don't really require that they be on removable substrates. We highly recommend those. You know, we protect the ghost signs because they are a part of the historic fabric of the building as it exists. These are new applications to the building. We would recommend that you put it on a substrate, but we do not require it. The only requirement there is how that substrate is actually attached to the building itself. It has to go along with the National Park Service guidelines on attaching anything through masonry, which, you know, we have guidelines for that. Otherwise, you know, we recommend it, but
Right.
it is not required.
Okay. This one relates to the no adhesive films rule. Was there a particular impetus for that, or where did that come from?
The D. Craig mural had nothing to do with this. We are following the National Parks guidelines, again, about adhesive films onto building, particularly masonry. If you try to put a vinyl adhesive film on a masonry building, it could actually not come off, and therefore that damages the historic structure of the building or the historic fabric. We don't really, the Architectural Heritage Board doesn't have say-so over junction boxes, which I see as part of that question, or road barriers downtown. They only really talk about the structure itself. So the road barriers and the junction boxes are out of their purview. And that would be up to the city to whether they would want to do that. So really, it is the guidance of the National Park Service not to put adhesive films onto historic buildings. They're just difficult to get off, and sometimes you can't get them off. And I think they're mostly talking about a lot of those vinyl sidings that are pasted or glued onto the building.
Okay.
So we would recommend, and it is within that adhesive films cannot be applied to historic structures.
Very good. And the last question I have is, the designation of murals as signs makes perfect sense in that it removes the content issues from discussion. But if the goal is a less subjective process, I wonder if that actually achieves that. Most murals will require a variance due to their size. That's the whole point of murals. They're big. And then how are those variances granted? What criteria does P and Z use in determining whether to grant a variance? I guess that would be a P and Z.
It is, I
Question.
am not sure what planning and zoning requires as far as a variance. I've had discussions with Steve Hunter. I don't foresee any issue with him coming in front of planning and zoning. The content issue, we can't decide on. That's a freedom of speech, First Amendment issue. So basically, it is the size of the mural that has been the issue all along. And the easiest, for the Architectural Heritage Board, we really want to decide if this is going to adversely affect that structure. All signs are mounted onto the buildings in particular ways. There's governance through planning and zoning of those signs. And for us, for the Architectural Heritage Board, a sign is a sign is a sign. So whether it's painted, whether it's applied through a board, however it's put on the building, it's a sign. And that is just the basic way to handle this without getting into freedom of speech issues and all of those sorts of things. And it seems to be what most communities are going through. This art business in downtowns really is a fairly new phenomena to historic districts. So most of them are just looking at signs. There's a lot of communities that just don't allow them, period. There's a lot of communities that say there only can be 12%. Versailles, I'm sorry, Bardstown says it can only be 12% of a facade. So they have specific size issues. From my discussion that we've had before and with the Architectural Heritage Board, I don't necessarily think we want to get into defining the size of the mural. Just let it be a sign and let them go for a variance.
Okay. Well, I appreciate very much you answering those questions, and I'm sure they do too. And I would like to apologize to the arts folks because I'm an idiot and forgot to make a copy of this and run it off. So I've been reading it off my phone, and I'm old, and that didn't work out too well, so I apologize. But I think hopefully the points got across and the questions got answered. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. We need a motion for the adoption of the guidelines.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you.
I do have one more question.
Certainly.
And you may not know this. The planning and zoning sign ordinance used to be, it had to be 25% or less. Is that still? Yes, okay. So if a mural, it would need to fall into the 25% of the surface area or less, unless they wanted a variance.
Correct.
To cover up to 100%.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further questions? Seeing,
Are we gonna look at this twice, or are we gonna try to pass it tonight and it becomes the law of the land? or-
I'll defer to council on that.
I believe what we will have to do is I have to submit this to the Heritage Council and make sure that, with your recommendation, that this is the way we want to go. And once the Heritage Council looks at it and makes sure that we are in compliance, and I'm assuming you also need to look at it to make sure the language is correct.
Sure, and just to be clear on that point, what we will do is, I mean, you can send it to the Heritage Council for review if you want to. We're at liberty to revise our ordinance how we will please. So if this is the process that you deem appropriate, our ordinance can be reflected regardless of the position of the state on that matter. This is within your local jurisdiction. So submit it to them by all means for their review, but we can prepare to have an official change to the design guidelines incorporating these changes that will be in your normal format that's redlined, and for a review of the official ordinance change.
And then I understand planning and zoning has to have a public hearing on it as well. Is that correct?
They're going to have an ordinance, or a text amendment to the planning and zoning ordinance? Well, it wouldn't require a public hearing if there's not a text amendment to the planning and zoning ordinance. If it's being treated as a sign, that seems unnecessary to me. I mean, we can talk about that administratively.
Sure.
But if it's just a review, a change to the design guidelines, that'll all transpire here and doesn't require planning and zoning approval
Okay.
at all. but we can discuss that after tonight and bring back before you a final document. This is just really, the vote tonight, in my opinion, is simply to gain your tacit approval of what's been proposed, and then is now an indication to staff to put it in a format that's ready for your approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
We already did that. We already did that, didn't we?
We had a motion. Did we have a second?
You do. It's ready for a vote, Mayor.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well,
Oh, Jay's getting ready to say something.
well, when we've dealt with these at the commission level, oftentimes the question has been about the content of the artist's work. I think this sort of takes out that discussion, removes that discussion from what's being proposed. And I'm just trying to read through it again to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. Did you want to respond to that? This takes out the,
It does take out the content issue. You know, that's been an issue all along, and we've had that problem. The Architectural Heritage Board really does not need to rule on the content or the design of the mural, only the application of it onto the historic structure. Free speech can be difficult occasionally in that there's no real guidance that we can, that as an Architectural Heritage Board, that we're able to give on content at this particular point.
but it also removes this commission from being involved in trying to make a decision about the content, the color,
Yes,
whatever.
it does. I would refer to.
It does. So with the review being done by the Planning Commission, their decision on that matter is deemed to be final. And so any appeal of a final action of the Planning Commission goes to circuit court and not this body.
I was going to say, I think, because of your good explanations, that most of the concerns of the arts folks have been addressed, but I think the format that Mr. Dexter is proposing would allow them, if they had other concerns, and I needed to bring those forward later, this format would allow me to do that.
That's exactly right. And so that's what I was going to say. Instead of, you're going to have more time to review and digest these. Your vote tonight is simply a direction to staff to proceed with putting this in final format. Just like if you hear a recommendation from the Planning Commission on a zone change, you kind of give a preliminary vote to proceed, and I prepare an ordinance and present it to you, and you can still review, make changes, or change your mind even at that point.
Anything further?
But the DAHB always looks at it first, right?
Yes.
And they look at the mural and, right? 'Cause
Well, we
that's
will.
the first step? Is that-
Yes, ma'am. We will
Okay.
look at how it is actually applied to the building, if it's going to do any structural damage to the building, if it follows the National Park guidelines. Like the National Park guidelines basically say you cannot paint on unpainted masonry. That would be a deal killer with DAHB. You cannot put it on the front of the facade. That is the National Park guidelines.
Okay.
So that is what we're, in essence, looking at. Is it applied correctly to the building? Is it going to cause any issue? We're not going to be looking at the design of it at all, just the application to the building.
And I understand that. My question is that, I guess it's just been answered, is that who's going to look at the content to decide or discuss if the content is appropriate for?
Well, that is an issue.
Right.
Can't do that
That is,
Can't do that anymore.
it will not be, content will not be considered, period. And that's something, in the treatment and definition of a mural as a sign, it will be treated as such, and therefore subject to that Supreme Court ruling a few years ago that says content cannot be considered. So it is going, the DHB will simply be looking, is it okay to place it on the structure where it is placed? And based on the guidelines there. Then the Planning Commission will look to see if the size and shape, it fits within the zoning ordinance, or if a variance is granted, it deemed where, if it's appropriate or not, and grant it there. But as far as the content of it, it will not be regulated, size, image, scope other than what has been presented there. Just like if you were to get a sign approved for your business, they couldn't tell you they don't like the design or the font that you used, but only if it meets the dimensions and schematics that are allowed by ordinance or variance.
That changes my whole attitude about it. I think this is the right approach. I know what the law says, but I can just imagine what somebody could propose to be on the side of a building.
But I would think in that case, unless they own the building, in that case, the building owner say, no, we're not putting that on my building.
That's where some of the discretion would come into mind. If someone presents a mural and the property owner is willing, the property owner would have to either, deem it a viable project for his or her structure or not in order to proceed.
Any further questions or comments? Time for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. One more. Resolution number 2021-05-2407. This is acceptance of CLG grant.
Yes, I came before you a couple months ago after the application process. We have been awarded this grant. The total project cost would be $3,520, and it is to survey 36 remaining structures between the Lexington, Broadway, and Commercial National Register District. There are 36 structures left that we have not surveyed. We just completed one with 84 surveys, and that was should be coming to you all very soon. What we have here tonight is just the, do you want to accept the grant? The one issue that we had, I had, I guess, an email from the Heritage Council Friday saying that they are going to remove the MOA language out of the contract. They have not gotten that to me yet. It's not going to change the money, any of that at all. It's just, for some reason, finance wants to remove the MOA language out of these contracts. I don't know what that does, or if that changes, or if that causes any issue legally. But basically, you would be accepting to pay $388 in cash for this. The majority of the share is my salary and the work I put in on this grants, and they tend to take a great long time for these surveys. So the city would actually be out about $388.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-05-2407 as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Atkins, Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion.
Thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, sound like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is very interesting to see how Danville really expanded. Most of those structures that we're looking at were built between 1930 and 1940. It could very well lead to the expansion of a National Register District, which would open up opportunities for tax credits for homeowners and those who are willing to invest in those particular neighborhoods. Once we get it all surveyed and understand the trend behind it, it could be a standalone National Register District or an expansion of two of the districts. And I'll probably come back with you guys in the next year or so and have a discussion about that. But that does, we like to say that preservation is an economic driver, and it certainly is. And this is one way that homeowners and folks who are investing in rental properties can get some of that money back on their investment. So it is a viable project. I think it's went pretty well. It's pretty interesting, too. A lot of homeowners asking me, what are you doing out in front of my house? And I go into long explanations, and they all seem pretty excited about it. I didn't know I lived in a historic home, but yes, you do. So it's pretty interesting. Good.
Anything further? None, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries, and we thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Item 13 is a report about the surplus auction. Ms. Ashley?
The city held a public surplus auction May 15th at the Public Services Garage. We had about 38 people attend, with 14 of those winning bids on 51 lots, and we made $34,636.70.
Very
That's
good.
my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 14 is, any questions for Ashley, by the way?
Where's the money?
It's back in the general fund.
Yeah, I just want to say, I really appreciate Ashley's hard work on that. That was not an easy task. I was there that morning for a little while, and she had everyone organized, and it went very smoothly, and I think everyone was pleased with the outcome.
Job well done to Ashley, because it was a lot of work. She was up there several days, and at the end of the day, the city has $34,000 it didn't have.
Right.
And we got a lot of space back out of the building.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I had a good team
So
helping
thank
me
you,
too.
Ash,
So
thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
She shared the credit.
Item 14 is resolution number 2021-05-24-08. We've already determined we're going to move that to another meeting. So we'll move right on to city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The only thing I have is, would like to announce a letter that we received recently, which you all are already aware, that the city was awarded the Brownfield grant, to assess properties downtown, and we'll be following up with you. It was a $300,000 grant to complete environmental phase 1 work tied to properties, and also some additional, possibly some cleanup activity if necessary, but also phase 2 reports as well. So it was a significant project. It's going to augment the downtown master plan well and the properties that were identified in it. Certainly, it supports that effort. So
If memory-
that was great news, and that was really all I wanted to announce.
If memory serves me correct, there are only 4 communities in Kentucky that got that.
Yes, substantial deal.
So
For sure.
congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if they're going to do phase 1s on everything, and then if they need to, they're going to do phase 2s, or does everything get both?
It processes into phase 2, so we'll be able to use the money. So if we have a property, then we can do a phase 1 on it through this program. If necessary, and a cleanup is necessary, then we can do the phase 2 report, which provides guidance for the cleanup. So it actually funds and can do some limited cleanup in certain situations. So it's a great program.
Yeah,
It's
that's great.
$300,000. It could cover phase 1s for up to 30 properties, and which is a big deal.
So phase 1 is to determine if the properties are considered brownfields, and then if they are, then that makes them eligible for some additional money.
Yes, the phase 1 report identifies if a phase 2 is necessary, bottom line. But a phase 1 report identifies if there's any known issues, then it brings those to light. It's a fairly intrusive investigation into a property, historical information, a lot of records at the federal level. And so it is time consuming. Just a typical parcel is going to be, $5,000 at least, probably, or 10. And so it's a lot of man hours for the consultant that's doing the work, to be honest. It's pretty neat. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Very good. Anything else, Earl?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ashley, for reminding me. We were going to talk about the meetings being open back up next month. Do you want to address that, or do you want me to? Yeah.
So with the governor lifting the restrictions for COVID-19, we will go back to public meetings beginning with our June 14th meeting.
Very good.
So the June 14th meeting will appear like they used to, bottom line. We'll still live stream them, but we'll have open to the public.
Good deal. Anything else?
No, sir.
We will move right into hear the public. This is public's opportunity to speak to the commission about anything that's on their mind. It's not on tonight's agenda.
There are no comments.
We'll move right along to commissioner comments, if there are any.
I have one. It's
Yes, ma'am.
actually a request. The director of the Brass Band Festival is asking for people to help volunteer to sell drinks in the Pepsi trailer. If you'd be interested in that, you can contact Missy Angolia or myself. I'm helping her to coordinate that.
Anything else? Move right along to financial
Wait,
items.
wait, wait, wait. I thought you was asking her if she was finished. You said anything
No, I'm
else?
sorry. Go right ahead, sir.
That's okay. In my daily trip around the community, it was exciting today to see the splash pad. It must have been 100 kids and 50 adults out there supervising, and I only took about 5 or 10 minutes, but I just said, man, kids know how to play together, in spite of all the crazy stuff that we deal with otherwise.
Leads to a good question about what's the time frame on putting another one of those somewhere else?
Well, we talked about that at lunch today.
Yes, and
you
so,
did?
so where we're at with Parks and Rec now, so we have Josh and we have the Parks and Rec director hired. We are taking the downtown master plan, we're looking at all the properties that the city has acquired as a result ultimately of that plan and other issues, including Jenny Rogers, including the fairgrounds, for example. We're looking at our old parks like Cowan Street, Jackson Park, Michael Smith Park. We're going to overlay the needs identified in the downtown master, or the Parks and Rec master plan, Parks master plan, and assess where those fit into our system of properties that we own and manage, right? And so that'll take a little bit of time. So you really, before you just say, well, this is where one needs to be, you need to apply some logic to it and see where the most population and spread it out can be influenced by it. You still have the south end of town that doesn't have any access to recreational facilities. You've got Cloverdale, Lisa Avenue side. There's a lot of homes in that area. It'd be nice to have something walkable there. Butler Drive is on the east side of Houstonville Road, that part. So I'm not sure necessarily where you do it, but you do need to apply a more methodical approach in where you put it. And so Josh will be working on an RFP like we talked about in the budget, funding the study to overlay those two things. And we'll be working on that RFP now, and so that by July, we'll be ready to go with a consultant to do that work. The properties that you have, like for example, Jenny Rogers, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to open it up for some activity. So we hope to, late summer, be in a position to do that. And then look through a process with the consultant and the community and seeing what fits where.
Thank you. That makes sense.
I also wanted to highlight and give a shout out to the Danville Housing Authority, Tim, for putting together a trip for Housing Authority Board members and City Commission members to travel to Newport, Kentucky tomorrow to look at their Housing Authority programming. And then the third thing I'd like to highlight today, the last thing, is that it was a year ago today when the unfortunate thing happened in the Mideast. George Floyd lost his life. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Danville Police Department and the Danville Fire Department and the Boyle County Sheriff's Department and the citizens of our community, Danville and Boyle County, for the professional way in which our community responded to the protest, the marching, the social injustice highlights, whatever you want to call it. And then to say to the community that the city commission had been given a list of citizens' concerns. And it's about 9 months since we received those, but just want to remind the citizens that we are working through that list and that change does take time, but we are still working through that list. And if you're out there planning to do any type of memorial service or march or protest or whatever else it might be in our community, please use the proper channels, please remain professional, and please help keep our community safe.
Anything else? We'll move right on to item 16, and that is the payment of the bills. Chair will accept a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the May 25th, 2021 bill list totaling only $162,719.17. And thank you, Jessica, for keeping the list down.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Atkins, second by Commissioner Cottle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 17 is the second reading of ordinance number 1968. This is a budget amendment. And Ms. Ashley, if you'll read that, please.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1968, an ordinance amending a portion of ordinance number 1950, which established the City of Danville, Kentucky annual budget for the fiscal year 7/1/20 through 6/30/21 by appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
Do I hear a motion for the second reading of ordinance number 1968?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Give that to Commissioner Holland. Discussion?
I just wanted to, for the public's sake, this is $640,000 for the purchase of Jenny Rogers and $40,000 of the CARES money that will go to our Senior Citizen Center to bring their allocation amount up to what it normally is.
And I just simply want to make the observation that the city of Danville is a small city. I was speaking to a citizen the other day, an informed citizen, and when I was explaining to her that this is a $52 million a year operation, she had no idea. We are a small city, big numbers. Any further discussion?
Well, you want to finish your statement with good leadership. We've done some great things over the last 6, 8 years, 12 years, 200 years for a small city.
Yeah. No further comments or questions? Chair will call for the roll call, please.
Commissioner Cottle?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Item 18 is utilities update. Mr. Carrier? Good evening, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Uh-oh,
Mayor, Commissioners.
something's behind me.
I've got a lot of ground to cover here with this update. I'll try to make it
You got 2.5 minutes.
as less painful as I possibly can. I can't do it that fast, but it'll be fast. Just wanted to bring to your all's attention a few things, some of the existing utility projects that we've got going on already around town. Most of you are probably aware that we've got some water projects along Perryville Road. So I'm going to cover a few of those and then cover some potential future projects. All those, of course, are possibly grant-related, possibly future funding-related topics of discussions too, as well as some regulatory discussion and some agenda items prospective for the June 14th meeting coming up too. So on this first slide here, we have the Perryville Road Phase 2 project. This is from Caldwell Road to Tuggle Road. If y'all are familiar with the booster pump project and the tank project up on the hill behind the house on Tuggle Road, so this leads up to that on the left of the corridor. Approximately 2,500 linear feet of this whole 16,000 project is completed to date. This is a USDARD project, and when it was awarded back to Hubert Excavating, it was $850,000 project. I had some photos taken and flown with our drone technology too, just to kind of give you all a feel for kind of what we're talking about here, and some of the amount of effort that's already not only been undertaken already, but moving along pretty well. This kind of gives you an idea of where the water line sits in relation to the corridor on 150 towards Perryville. This is Danville back here. We came up out of the corner of a property here and immediately got down to the right of way and came up out of the drainage culvert area, and then we're progressing along the south side of the corridor along towards Perryville. And this kind of paints a good picture for some more discussion I'll have on another project in the future too, and I'll touch on that. But These are just some general overhead photos of the track hoe relaying some of the earth that is removed and recovered on some of the water line too. So, and this, again, kind of shows the idea of where we're located in between the right-of-way and the shoulder of 150 there. It's always, if possible, it's always good to work with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and try to do as much work in the right-of-way as we possibly can. It makes it a lot easier for us to operate and maintain those water lines if we have to go back out there in the future instead of having to traverse over onto an easement or something on an adjacent property owner, just less disturbance on their part too, so. This is the booster pump project that I mentioned just a few seconds ago. Obviously, you guys are aware of this. We've made some very good headway on this project as well. This is going to be a 750,000 gallon elevated tank. This is, to kind of put it in perspective, this is the same size as the tank on 4th Street on top of the hill. So it's a pretty substantial size water tower, 500 gallon a minute booster pump station. And we actually got to go up to Caldwell Tank in Louisville and walk through their facilities, and they showed us actually some of the steel that was being pressed and rolled for this particular tank. And we had a good conversation with them. They allowed me to take some pictures, but they asked if I didn't put it into a presentation. So I'll probably better not do that, especially in this scenario. But it was a great walkthrough, and we got a lot of good information from those folks, and they're great to work with. It's Caldwell Tank. This is the same project. Just wanted to kind of paint a picture too. When it comes to a large scale project and similar, that's more technical and standard. As a water tank project, you're going to have your schedule broken out. Most any projects like this are going to have your schedule broken out to your access roads, the tank erection, site piping, and vault installation. So. Obviously we're right in this area here. We actually got started middle of last week, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule on the actual welding of the legs to start the tank from the ground up. So, and those caissons, just for your all's information, the legs, the concrete under those legs are anywhere from 22 to 24 feet deep in the ground in that area. So all that area, all those corings and drills and caissons had to be drilled with a 3-foot rig. And took some time to do all that and get through all the rock and hard material, but we actually made it through ahead of schedule and got it started a little bit earlier than we anticipated. This is Perryville Road Phase 3. This is currently not funded just yet. We are in the process, and you'll see one of the agenda items coming up is related to the design fees for this particular project, HDR's Design Amendment 2. It's a $2.4 million project. This is in partnership with KYTC. I don't know if you all remember, but a couple months ago when I gave another presentation, I talked about KYTC had let this bridge for construction. They had been working many, many years to get this bridge let, so they're super excited to have this particular bridge let for construction. And also we're communicating with them during our design phase to do a partial, what's called a, they're doing what's called a part width, okay? So this is kind of just to the viewer, maybe at home you'll get an understanding. This is, when you got an existing bridge like you have here and you have no other crossings in the area, you have to be really careful about how you demolish the top of that bridge and reconstruct the top of that bridge, just to maintain traffic, obviously. So you do what's called a phased approach, where you only remove a portion of it and put you put up a wall, concrete wall, barrier wall on one side, and then you maintain two-way traffic on the shoulder. Or you could use a signalized traffic control at the end of the bridge and let one lane through at a time, depending on the shoulder width that you have. Then you get one side done, and obviously you turn around and do it on the other side so you get both sides done. It's called part width. And kind of a neat scenario that we don't often see, we're actually in communication with KYTC. They allowed us to hang our proposed water line under the superstructure of the bridge itself. So that allowed us to not have to bore under the stream and come up this steep incline bluff up into these properties. We were able to just come right down along the corridor and come right across the bridge. So that was a pretty good win for us, and we ended up saving quite a bit of money in doing that too, so. This is a project, hopefully on the horizon too. This is an interconnect project with the city of Springfield. They have Bell Engineering doing the work. This is a pretty good sized project. It extends essentially from the end of our Perryville Road Bridge that I just talked about to the west, all the way into Washington County. And it's a pretty substantial project, 23,000 linear feet of 12-inch water line. Bottom line, though, this is a good effort between two communities to improve water to the folks of the area and allow them to, purchase treated water from the city of Danville and provide that water provision to the folks in Washington County, and allows them to essentially free up a lot of their other system too to provide provision for the other folks in their system as well. So it's a win-win for us and for Springfield and for the folks in both areas. Another potential project, this is the Spears Creek Sewer Pump Station. You all probably heard me mention this a few times. This is an aging pump station. We have a lot of sanitary sewer overflows in this area, especially being directly by the stream. This is a big deal for the city of Danville. We want to try to protect Spears Creek as best we can. This is an $800,000 price tag, but really one of the main bullet points to read here is you're getting a lot of flow from the west side of Danville. So this is right in, the crosshairs of anytime you have a major storm event, you have a lot of sanitary sewer overflows and issues with this particular pump station, because from here it goes on to the wastewater plant, especially with an aging force main that runs to the water plant, the wastewater plant too. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this structure as well as with the force main, and hopefully if the STAG grant works out or other communications with leadership regionally, we'll have the money to get this thing off the ground and running. A little more discussion too about another prospective project. This is kind of you've heard the discussions back and forth about broadband technology, and this certainly fits that mold. This is essentially the city of Danville's attempt to provide better accessibility to the folks around the city and around the county. And with that, improved access, you're certainly going to get, better business attributes as part of that, but also better connectivity for the folks that live in the homes along the area too. So it essentially allows us to look at, the provision of such informational and technology to the folks out towards Perryville as well, and along the 150 corridor, as well as downtown Danville. So, it's another situation too with the type of investment that we're looking at. It can have benefit tenfold for the folks and for the economy of the city.
What's your timeline on something like that?
Well, if we can, we had anticipated if funding were available to let this particular project later this year. And the beauty of what you see here is what's called this pipe-in-pipe technology, right? So the crux of that is, instead of, the dangers of, open ditch cutting and putting in conduit and running the risk of impacting existing utilities along the city streets and along the highways, which you will run into if you do that, obviously in the city of Danville. This uses this pipe-in-pipe technology where we just essentially thread it through our existing water lines around town. And that's about as efficient of a way to provide broadband access as you can get. There's different ways of doing this. Obviously, this is just one methodology. But this methodology is cutting-edge technology, and it makes perfect sense for a situation that we have here in the city of Danville. And it's certainly worth a more in-depth look.
So you've decided that's the way we're going to apply it?
I think it makes the most sense
Okay.
To provide this type of technology. We've already been in discussions with some folks about the best ways to do this, and I've had discussions with Frankfurt Plant Board, getting their thoughts because they run and operate their own internet service provider as well. It's a little bit of a different animal. They've been established for 20-plus years, whereas this is, the situation that we're talking about here is primarily going to be, seated in the utilities department here for the city of Danville. So, or at least that's the initial thought. There's many ways to slice that as well. But at the end of the day, the goal is to provide broadband to the folks, and that's where we want to be. And we want to do that as efficiently and least disruptive as possible. And it sounds like this right here is the way to do that. I'll touch on a few programmatic and regulatory items. You've heard me probably discuss the CMOM document. Per Division of Water requirements, we've got this document currently in our hands now. It's going to live perpetually, essentially, in a draft form. And that's the beauty of it, is the goal of this document is to be progressively changed over time. And you're changing with new evaluations, you're changing with new regulatory requirements, and it essentially takes the shape of Kentucky Division of Water to some degree over the years. But the goal essentially is just self-assessment and continuous evaluation. And another agenda of something of this caliber is, preventing sanitary sewer overflows. We've got an aging system here in the city of Danville. You get anytime you have a major storm event, you have a lot of inflow and infiltration that gets into the old sanitary sewer lines, and it causes some overflow issues in some areas of the city. So this is a way to programmatically assess those situations and prioritize maintenance and rehab of that over time. And this goes hand in hand with KDOW's goals and objectives of doing such. And it also, that ties into, I think you probably heard Earl mention the SSOP program, Sanitary Sewer Overflow Program. And this goes hand in hand with that program. Actually, this is part of the CMOM document. We've got over 600,000 linear feet of anywhere from 8 to 30-inch diameter sanitary sewer gravity mains in the city of Danville, Junction, and Perryville. We got 12 pump stations, so we have to take some additional measures and thought, and operationally, we need to be fully aware of the current situation and where we want to be in the future, and that's part of that whole discussion as well. And then you have the lead and copper rule. This is essentially born out of the 1991 Safe Drinking Water Act requirements. And this is targeting lead contamination in our drinking water. So what does that mean for, kids in the school systems? Lead in drinking water obviously is a known carcinogen, and it can affect generations of families, right? So born out of that discussion, we are going to be working with the EPA in targeting impacted areas across the city of Danville and Boyle County, and anywhere in our water system, but primarily starting out in the city of Danville and working our way throughout the rest of our system. But looking at ways to remove or reduce lead service lines in the area as well. Right now our water treatment plant provides, secondary chemicals into the water to reduce corrosive effects in any existing lead lines in our system. And due to even more stringent regulations from the EPA with this lead and copper rule, we'll actually be working with them to be even more proactive in reducing any possible lead contamination that's in our water system. So,
How does that
Marshall,
affect residential that got all the lead pipes from 75 years ago?
right. Well, so part of this discussion is we have locations around town where we test for lead contamination. And they've reduced the threshold. It used to be 15 micrograms per milligram, but then it's been reduced to 10 micrograms per liter now. So that being said, we have to be more stringent on what those regulations point to for us as the wastewater system provider, right? So we continually test water samples in various locations of the city. It kind of gives you a mental perspective of lead contamination results in various areas of the town, right? Well, this goes even a step further. No, it builds on what we do already, but also it looks at your school systems, it looks at daycare facilities, hospitals, anywhere you have, groupings of families, that type of stuff, as well as in homes and businesses, and looking at, additional testing in those areas as well. And if it comes back at a certain threshold, then we have to work with the property owner to have those lead lines removed. Now, once you get into the fixtures of the house, it's kind of a different discussion, but this is mainly concerned with the lead service lines that is provided to the folks. So,
Marshall, talk about, excuse me, how much money you requested in the budget to help manage the program, which is an additional cost this year that we've added.
yes, programmatically, there's not a great number to assess to this, so we kind of had to go by the number of customers and ballpark, something that made sense. Now, once we move into later in the year, it'll start to take shape a little more, and we'll have better numbers to facilitate from a budgetary standpoint. One thing to notice is, the EPA has been seeking comment for this particular agenda for some time now. And they've gone back and forth with the local municipalities in seeking that comment, and they've actually moved the start date for the program to December of this year. So we've got a little more breathing room from a budgetary standpoint and from a planning standpoint. But there are, strings attached as far as qualifications and getting all this complete. So the effective date starts in December 16 of this year. So 3 years onto that, September 16th, 2024, we need to be in full compliance. So that's our goal. So you have to plan ahead. You have to look at costs. You have to look at multiple scenarios to get there. And if you're not able to meet those thresholds, they'll still work with you, but that's not where we want to be. So.
Okay.
You may have heard me mention before about the CDBG grant for water and sewer rate relief or billing relief. And that's what this is, and that's what another agenda item coming up is going to refer to that you all have in front of you too. So, and really, what this focuses on are those customers that have been, financially impacted by COVID-19, and it goes all the way back to January of 2020. So it's retroactively implemented too. So what we've done as a utility provider is gone back and looked at the billing history of all customers up to the 30th of last month, okay? And looked at who has gone through the COVID-19 epidemic and what we've tried to do. You all are aware that we've worked with customers for payment plans. We've tried to be proactive with them on communication, making calls, trying to reduce cutoffs and trying to help them as best we can. But there's still some outliers in that discussion that, for whatever reason, if it's COVID-19 or hardships or whatever, they may be behind on their water and sewer bills. That's understandable. That's exactly what this program is for, is to facilitate the payments, back to the utility provider, which in this case are us, the city of Danville, via those customers, right? So you're going to have a lot of participation from your community action folks. You're going to have a lot of participation from Bluegrass Ad, DLG, those folks. So, and that's what this is going to be geared towards. So, when we get to the resolution later, and that's where really what we'll be talking about is just your all's blessing on pursuing this and setting up a public meeting, a public hearing to get this thing kicked off. And it's another situation where it's a win-win for everybody. It just takes a little effort on our end to get there. But it's a great program.
Good.
This is, again, tied to Governor Beshear's announcement back in January, the $38 million availability of funds. So over time, this has kind of had to take shape through Bluegrass Ad and DLG, and this is where we are. They provided the draft application for us just last week. So now that we got that in hand, we want to go ahead and get the ball rolling. These are just some items that I'd like to cover in the upcoming June 14th commission meeting. The rate study analysis, I know you guys are aware of that as well. The sanitary sewer cost of service study. We're going to have a presentation by Connie Allen with our Salt River Engineering consultant that has worked in years previously with the city of Danville to do water service studies as well as sewer service studies and rate adjustments. Really what this comes down to is just ensuring that the customers pay the rates based on the cost that they cause on the system. You know, you want to be open and honest about the impacts that we have across our utility, but we also wanted to provide, you know, cost allocations to the customer base that makes sense based on their usage. And this is more than just a simple rate study. You know, you're looking at a myriad of items: wastewater treatment plant loadings, insurance, depreciation values. There's a whole laundry list of items that we can talk about in the meeting next month to further give you all a better idea of what we're talking about. And she'll do a great job of doing that too. This is a census analytics program. I'd like to do a brief walkthrough in the meeting on the 14th on this too. Census analytics is essentially tied hand in hand with our Cubic software. That's our billing software. So this is a digital analytics program that we have, you know, digital meters around the city that relays information via digital satellite feeds and tower feeds back to our program here at City Hall, and allows us as a utility provider to look at any of the customer accounts and go into and look at their meter usage. You know, if they come in with a complaint, for example, let's say hey, for whatever reason, my water bill's sky high this month. Well, we can go back into if they're on the digital system, we can go back and look at their meter digitally at the history of it throughout the previous billing month, and be able to exactly know when something happened, that all of a sudden you see a spike in their usage. Well, it may not be usage, it may be a leak or something on their side, or it may be something on our side. So it's a much quicker way to assess, you know, issues of that type, but also it can help paint a picture for the customers of their daily usage too. So, you know, if I'm using more water at certain times of the year or certain parts of the day, maybe that's something for me to think about as a customer to help myself reduce, you know, some of my costs. So it's really handy as far as real-time meter information for the folks, and has a lot of usability, and we'll cover that on the 14th. And this, of course, is the wastewater treatment plant. We put this out for bid back in March. I believe it was the 23rd. We originally had it scheduled for the 11th, but it got moved to the 23rd because we had a lot of folks that were interested in the project that wanted some additional information, which is always a good thing, so we bumped it out to the 23rd. So from that point on, we've got approximately 3 months to look at ways to assess the cost, maybe reevaluate the cost overall, and compare to what we have in the bank, so to speak, with the city of Danville. Phase one is broken into 2 phases. Phase one is primary just treatment improvements, screening improvements, UV system, which this is an aging UV system. This is 20-plus years. And actually, I stopped by there today and talked with the folks at the wastewater plant, and they just replaced a computer board into the UV system that we're going to try to see if we have a warranty on it. If we don't have a warranty on it, that's a $10,000 piece of equipment. And that's just one portion of the UV system. So that kind of, you know, maybe instills in some folks' minds that, you know, with an aging system like that, your costs just keep going up and up and up. And you finally get to a point that it's so old that it's irreplaceable, right? So then you're looking at a major improvement. Well, that's tied to phase one as well. As well as a new operations building, a more modern operations building, dewatering systems, and there's another, you know, more thorough list that I'll cover on the 14th as well. And then phase two is more of a capacity improvements type discussion. So, and one thing that I wanted to kind of briefly touch on, and I'll wrap this up, is you know, I've been in some meetings with the economic development folks and leadership around the city, and you get a lot of interest from, you know, maybe major industrial users that want to come into the area, right? You know, and they give you kind of a brief overview of what their needs are from a utility standpoint, what your water service needs are, your electric, all that stuff. That's also tied to your sanitary sewer, right? Well, we're to the point, you know, we're getting to the point that capacity-wise, we need to be thinking hard on, you know, what do we need to do as a city of Danville to provide additional capacity? Because everything, at the end of the day, points to economic development, right?
Yep.
So if you have a potential investor or somebody that's interested in coming in the area, and they say, well, you know, we provide X amount of hundreds of thousands of additional gallons into your sanitary sewer plant, maybe we can or maybe we can't handle it, you know? So if we're not able to, at least some point in the near future, either now or in years to come, you know, need to be thinking about the expansion of the wastewater, and that's what Phase 2 will do as well. But we're trying to best use our time wisely between now and the 23rd of next month, because I wanted to make sure that we're in a good position and make a recommendation to you folks and to the commission and to the citizens around town that we're using our funds wisely, but also, you know, you have to also think about, you know, the market, the way the market's adjusting right now. Right now, the market's pointed up, which is a tremendous cost burden on something like this. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces in this. So, you know, at the end of the day, we just want to be sure that we're making the right choice for the folks, and that if we need to move some things around or, you know, speed some things up, maybe that's where we need to be. So it's kind of just wanted to touch on that and point to the fact that, you know, everything that we do, especially, you know, from when you talk about capacity standpoint, has an impact from an economic development aspect too, which can affect job creation and the economy around town. So just something to think about, and we'll talk more about that on the 14th. But, and that's it. I went a little over two and a half minutes.
Just a little.
But I wanted to hit a lot of the high spots and try to cover as much as we could.
Questions? So this wastewater issue, that's on the same scale in terms of complexity and cost as the water treatment plant?
Yeah, I mean, you're in the same ballpark. It's a little bit less expensive than the water treatment plant was, because there was a lot more work done. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're still, you know, years ago versus where we are now, and from a market standpoint, you're progressively crawling into that conversation from a cost standpoint. So, you know, by phasing it out, you're able to bite it off a little better. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, things just, they typically don't get cheaper over time, especially.
There's another nuance with the sewer system that's a little bit different. Well, when you're going on to the subject of Phase 1 and Phase 2, when we originally did the 2017 wastewater plan that HDR worked on after the water plant construction, we did feel strong, and they did too, that we had clean 2 phases. You would do Phase 1, which makes room for the capacity upgrade. But since then, our capacity has, is being pushed. And so it's pressing Phase 2 up against Phase 1 in a way that we thought we would have more time. So I don't know, it's definitely a hard thing to figure out. But then the other thing is, when we're talking about the sewer system, you got to remember that the water line from the lake that we have originally was treated water from the lake to Danville. Then it became raw water from the lake to the water plant. And then now today it's finished water going back to Garrett County or into that end of the county. That water line's more than 100 years old. As a matter of fact, it's tied to an easement here coming up. A wastewater system is, when you're dealing with a sanitary waste, it is highly corrosive. And so the force main made out of the same material that he's talking about with Spears Creek, that force main is made out of the same materials as the water line. coming from the lake that's been there 120 years, still in good shape. It's got sections of it that are pretty well reaching the end of its useful life, and it was put in the mid-'80s. So it's a different, you have pump stations, you need to be renovating them. That Spears Creek pump station is reaching the end of its life. It was renovated fully in 1998. So the turnaround on a sewer project is you really have a limited life on a lot of your pump stations, for example. As soon as you get them done, 20 years, you're going to be replacing it. Water line, the 4th Street water towers in the 60s, right? And so it's standing there in good shape, looks new. It needs wash probably this year, but they're in good shape. So it's just a different animal, and we always try to repeat that when we have an opportunity, because it is just a different animal than water, and it has a different cost burden. And we always say there's a reason why Kentucky American's not in the sewer business in Lexington, right? It's a different cost, it's a different cost burden, and it is more expensive.
So it strikes me, to your point, that as building materials have increased extraordinarily so, I would certainly not want our limited capacity at this point to stand in the way of a significant economic opportunity out there. That said, you got to weigh the cost. Okay, if the cost of it now is significantly more because of the price of steel, et cetera, yeah, but what's the cost if we have an opportunity, whatever that might be, that we can't meet that need? Now, that cost is a big cost.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, 60% of the revenue coming to this city is in the form of payroll tax.
Well, it's keep that in mind as you think about it between now and the 14th, and we'll have a developed presentation for you on the 14th.
Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh.
Good work.
Yep, thank you.
We'll continue on with resolution number 2021-05-24-09. This is an amendment with the HDR contract. Continue on, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in relation to, you all saw the Perryville Waterline project, right? This is a KIA-funded project. We have HDR currently on contract to do other designs around the city, and this will be an amendment number 2 to their existing contract. This includes topographical survey, erosion sediment control, geotech investigations, just a list of design elements that is typical of any waterline project. And this fee that they've calculated is based on a percentage. There's a percent-based fee associated with the project estimated cost, which right now is about $2.4 million. So this fee that you see right here in front of you, this 242.3, is a percentage based on the math that is typical of a KIA funded project.
We did do the inspection for waterline work
yeah.
in-house. It saves about $100,000 because you have a qualified inspector on staff again, and so that's a good asset too. We talked about at the budget meeting last week that the KIA financing, that loan, will fund the construction of this project, including the design fees. The balance of that money, remember, the loan was about $4.9 million. The construction contract on the tower is about $2.9 million. So there is some room there to fund this, and hopefully, if not all of it, very close to all of it. The drawing, I would like to point out too, that the drawing where we showed the connection to Springfield, that they received an EDA grant to fund that construction, so you are not going to be asked to, as of right now, to pay for any part of the work from the termination of this project onto Springfield. They will be bearing that with their EDA grant.
It must have been a big grant.
We got one with Corporate Drive. It really helped out a ton there for us, if you'll recall. Yeah.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2021-05-2409.
Thanks, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Cardle, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 20 is resolution number 2021-05-24-10. This is a grant with the CDBG COVID-19 Utility Assistance, as you just referenced.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I wanted to bring it up in the presentation to kind of give you all a little bit of background on this. You know, this is essentially just asking you as a commission for us to have a public hearing in the near future to bring this to the attention. We're also going to be doing some social media outreach as well as, you know, postings around City Hall when people come in, just to make the folks aware, and in the local paper too, obviously.
Do we hear a
just
motion to this effect?
to make them aware.
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2021-05-2410.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Cardle, thank you. Any further discussion?
I have a question sort of related to this.
Okay.
Where are we on monthly water bills?
We've actually discussed that in the last meeting with our utility admin folks, and our goal is to have that done for you guys. I know that was a priority to get that moved from bi-monthly to monthly. Now, there's going to be a little bit of, and we can work through this, a little bit of reconfiguration of how we do some of the billing as far as there's a little bit of efforts, you know, on the part of the customer to get reacquainted with going back into monthly billing. It makes total sense to do that. It's probably makes more sense for the customer to go back to monthly billing. And we'll certainly work to get that done as quickly as we possibly can.
Especially if you add a fiber optic charge to it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 21 is resolution number 2021-05-24-11. This is a water line easement relocation. Continue on, Mr. Carrier.
I want to take this, Marshall, if you
Yes,
don't mind.
go ahead, please.
The water line that is traversing Graybrook, that is originally shown as a diagonal line across the lot that is denoted as Lot 55 in Rolling Meadows. That line is the line that I described earlier that's been there for a long time, generational. It predated the subdivision of the farm that the lots were created on. In the mid-90s, there was a request made to relocate the water line. That was done. We have been aware of it for some time. I knew it was relocated, for example. I know other staff did. But it was done so that a house could be built on the lot, so that the lot could be a usable lot. But we can't find that a record was ever filed to denote the new easement relocation. And so the resolution simply relocates the easement to the new line where it's laid.
Very good. Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
So move for passage of 05-24-2021.
Thank you.
11.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Let me add a comment on all this, talking about water. I had the pleasure of watching a National Geographic special. It's a 2-hour and 7-minute presentation about the water shortage that is occurring in California. It's all over the Southwest. And 80% of the water that comes out of Northern California is feeding agriculture crops that are grown in Southern California. And the agriculture crops are only 2% of the economy of California. So as I'm sitting there looking at that, I'm going, you know what? I may not see it in my lifetime, but the day's going to come where we're going to look back and say, whoever came up with our water plant and Harrington Lake, they gave us the bedrock of economic development. Because California's in trouble. You start messing with water, you just stopped everything. And so I encourage everybody to take a look at that. It really is a fascinating piece.
Yeah, Mayor, there's two watersheds in the southeast through Georgia, one on the east side, one on the west side of Georgia. Same battle that they have out west occurs in the south.
Yeah.
In those two watersheds. And we're very fortunate, very fortunate.
The only thing we have to ever worry about on that is a breach of that dam, which I don't see that happening anytime soon, but
We'll knock on wood for you.
no kidding.
Because you're there.
No kidding, no kidding. It's fascinating if you can find that somewhere on National Geographic. Okay, I'm through preaching. Council, do we have reason for an executive session?
We do, Mayor.
Under what grounds, sir?
I believe we have a litigation issue as well as personnel. The big three.
We got the trifecta here.
The trifecta?
Got the
That's right.
trifecta. So Commissioner Terry, if you take us home on that.
I will
Thanks, Marshall.
move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61.8.10.1F. Also for litigation pursuant to KRS 61.8.10.1C, for which disclosure of details might compromise litigation posture. Also, what was it? Property?
Property acquisition.
Also for property, potential real property acquisition for which publicity at present stage might or would be likely to affect the value per KRS 61.8.10.1B.
We have a motion by Commissioner Terry. Is
Second.
there a second?
Yeah.
I learned from the best.
Is that second?
Yeah.
Commissioner Holland, thank you. Any further discussion?
We get no respect.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We shall
Marshall?
move in executive session.
Okay.
Move that we go back into regular session.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. We're in regular, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. We're in regular session. Mr. City Manager, is there anything to report?
None.
Then Chair will entertain a motion to
Move
adjourn.
We adjourn.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Have a good evening.